Did you know that your leadership brand is being built whether you know it or not? It's not your logo, it's not your resume, and it's not even your fancy job title. It's how people feel after they've worked with you. It's what sticks when the room clears out, and the reputation that walks ahead of you and then lingers well after you left. You don't get to control it, but you do get to shape it. The problem? Most people don't even know that they're shaping it until something goes wrong. A disengaged team, an unexpected exit, a conversation behind closed doors where your name comes up and not in the way that you'd hoped. That's when you realize that you've been building a brand this entire time. The question is, was it the one that you meant to build? Welcome to the Everyday Diplomat, where we equip leaders with real-world strategies to lead with clarity, presence, and influence, especially when it matters the most. I'm Michael Forrest, retired Marine Sergeant Major, former diplomat with the U.S. Department of State, and someone who spent more than 20 years leading high-performing teams through combat, crisis, and transformation. And here's something that I've learned. Leadership branding isn't about polish. It's about pattern. It's about consistency when the pressure is real. It's about showing people exactly who you are over time. And today, I'm going to show you how to build a leadership brand that earns trust, not attention. Let's get into it. You know, a lot of people think that branding is all about images, logos, fonts, colors, a polished LinkedIn headline, a website that looks like you paid a consultant more than $10,000 to put together. That might work for influencers, but that's not what leadership branding is. Because here's the truth. You already have a brand, even if you've never defined it, even if you've never written it down. If you manage a team, lead an organization, wear a uniform of any kind, or even run a household, you already have a brand. It's the emotional residue that you leave behind in every room that you walk into and then every one that you leave. It's in the way that people adjust when you show up. It's in the silence after you speak. It's in whether or not people brace themselves or breathe easier when they see your name on the calendar. Your leadership brand isn't how you introduce yourself. It's how people describe you when you're not there to clean it up. It's not a mission statement. It's the mission that you repeat when nobody else is watching. It's not your tagline, it's your tone. And it's not what you decide to post on social media. It's what you decide to practice every day. And it's not about charisma, it's about clarity. Clarity in how you treat people, clarity in how you uphold standards, clarity in what people can count on from you again and again. Because trust doesn't come from how impressive you are. It comes from how predictable you are in the best possible way. When people know what version of you they're going to get, whether things are calm or chaotic, that's when you make your brand powerful. Not because it's flashy, but because it's stable. Despite what a lot of people say, your leadership brand isn't something that you announce ahead of time. It's something that you reveal one interaction at a time. It's not built at the all-hands meeting. It's built in the hallway. It's built in the inbox, the parking lot, after everybody else has gone home. It's built when somebody tells you something incredibly difficult, and then they're watching your face to see if you flinch. It's built when the tensions rise, and they're looking at you to see whether or not you panic or you decide to press on. It's built in how you respond when one of your teammates fail, or how you respond when one of them win. How you treat the person who can do absolutely nothing for your career. That's the stuff that people really remember. I saw this unexpectedly on a cruise of all places. My wife and I took our first cruise with Royal Caribbean some months back, and something stood out to me almost immediately. Every bartender at every bar on the entire ship made the exact same version of the drink, the old-fashioned. It was the same glass, the same ratio, same garnish, same exact taste. It didn't matter where we went. It was absolutely and purely consistent. And I don't mean just close, not pretty similar, identical. And this wasn't because that we kept finding the same best bartender. It was because somebody behind the scenes had defined what right looked like, and then they trained, reinforced, and upheld it across the entire team. That's what makes a brand strong. It's not marketing, it's standards. It's not slogans, but reinforcement. And here's the real kicker. When something goes wrong, and trust me, it's going to eventually, people are not going to fall back on the things that you said. They're going to fall back on what you trained them to do. It's the same exact thing in leadership. If your brand is built only on charisma, it's going to completely crumble under pressure. But if your brand is built on a clear set of standards and daily consistency, it becomes something that your team can lean on when things are going to get hard. Because your people want to trust you. They want to know how you're going to react. They want to know what really matters to you. And they want to know where the edges are so that they can move confidently within them. Your job is to make those things explicitly clear. Not by putting them on a fancy poster on the wall, but by living them every single day. That's how your brand is built. Not all at once, but one small brick at a time. Here's something that almost every leader underestimates. Your team is always watching you. Not because they're judging, but because they're calibrating themselves. They're trying to figure out what is okay, what's normal, and what gets rewarded and what gets ignored. So when you decide to let things slide, a sharp comment, a missed deadline, a toxic but talented employee, you're not just avoiding a tough conversation, you are setting a completely new precedent. And over time, those little moments, they pile up, not into chaos, but into confusion. Confusion about what matters, confusion about what's safe, confusion about whether your values are real or if they're just printed on a poster. That's where your brand starts to completely erode. In the Marine Corps, we had a saying that the standards that you choose to walk past are the new standards that you now accept. And it doesn't take long for people to notice what you're walking past. Maybe you're tired one day. Maybe you're picking your battles. Maybe you're telling yourself that it's not a big deal. But to your team, it's a big deal because they're not listening to your words. They're watching the choices that you make. And the moment that your actions no longer match your expectations, the trust begins to crack. You might not see it right away, but you're gonna feel it later in the hesitation, in the silence, in that lowered bar that became your new norm. So if you want your brand to be credible, you can't just set the standard one time. You have to protect it. You have to reinforce it. So model it consistently because inconsistency is the loudest thing in your team. And the moment that your team starts guessing where you stand on something, you have already lost clarity. If anything that we're talking about so far is resonating with you, if it's helping you see leadership from a completely different angle, consider subscribing to this channel. We post long-form videos just like this every week, along with short practical leadership insights scattered throughout the week to keep you sharp. This channel exists to help leaders just like you with clarity, with presence, with real-world confidence. We're not here for buzzwords. So if that's the type of support that you're looking for, I would love to have you here. You can't build a trusted leadership brand by accident. You have to be intentional about everything that you do. This starts with one question. What do I want people to consistently experience when they work with me? Not what do I want them to think of me, and not how do I make myself look impressive, but when they interact with me, do they feel seen? Do they feel safe? Do they feel challenged in all of the right ways? Do they feel like their time, their effort, or their voice matters? Because your brand is less about how you're perceived and more about what people believe is possible when you're in the room. So how do you start building the right brand? First, you have to define what right looks like. You can't model what you haven't already clarified. So ask yourself, what do I want to be known for? What type of climate do I want to create within this team? What values should show up even when I'm not in the building? Then you go ahead and you model it with absolute discipline. Be the first person to walk the standards that you chose to set. Don't just talk about accountability. Be the person who embodies it. Don't say that communication matters and then vanish when things start to get hard. Don't say words like teamwork and then go ahead and protect your own time while your team is at work burning out. If it matters, it has to be visible. And if it's visible, it also has to be consistent. On one of the many instances where I took over a unit where my predecessor had been relieved for misconduct, the morale was incredibly low. Trust was fractured or non-existent, and the standards had began to slip because nobody was reinforcing them anymore. I didn't walk in with some grandiose speech. I walked in with absolute clarity and consistency, though. I showed up the same way every single day, and I treated people with respect no matter what uniform they wore. I enforced the very same rules regardless of the rank of the individual with whom I was speaking. And slowly, things started to shift because consistency communicates safety. It gives people the foundation that they can trust. And once they trust that foundation, they're going to help you build upon it. That's how your brand grows. It's not with flair, but with absolute follow through. It's built in the early days when people are still unsure. It's built when no one's watching. And it's built by the leader who doesn't need a spotlight shining on them because their people already know who they are. There's a part of leadership that people just don't talk about enough, and that's the long game. Because the leadership brand that you're building today, you might not see the full return on it for years or even decades down the road. But make no mistake, it's storing up equity. And when the moment comes, it's going to show up. When I served as a first sergeant and later as a sergeant major, many of the successes that I was able to help create for my Marines weren't just about the policies that I knew or the processes that we followed. They were about the relationships that I had built and established over the previous 20 years. Young Marines that I had mentored who were young staff NCOs at the time or young officers were now lead decision makers. These were people that I had helped without ever asking for anything in return. People I treated with dignity, even and especially when nobody else was watching. They remembered. And when I called up asking questions, they were the first ones to pick up. We were able to move mountains together that on paper looked incredibly immovable. Reassignments into closed MOSs that should have been a dead end, and admittance into special duty programs where influence mattered just as much as the individual's qualifications. Even second chances through legal channels when the entire system felt rigid and completely unforgiving. Because of those relationships, we didn't just follow the rules, we found a way to take care of people the right way. Not by cheating the system, not even a little bit, but by knowing how it worked and then having the credibility to ask for allowable considerations when it mattered. That's what your leadership brand becomes over time. Credibility that you can call on when the stakes are the highest. It certainly doesn't mean that you're going to get everything that you ask for, but it means that your name, it actually means something. It means people are more likely to say yes because they know who they're saying yes to. And none of that happens overnight. Your leadership brand is like a shadow that stretches further the longer you walk with integrity. You build it when you help somebody that can't do anything for you. You build it when you follow up, when you follow through, and when you do what you said you were going to do. You build it when you solve problems the right way, not just the fast way. And then one day down the line, when somebody on your team needs help, when their situation calls for a favor or a phone call or maybe a little bit of influence, you have it because you earned it. That's the power of long-term consistency. It's not flashy, it's certainly not instant, but it's priceless when the moment comes. So the question isn't what's your brand today, it's what type of brand are you building for the version of you 10 years from right now? Because the leader that you're becoming is going to need that. What is your brand going to say when you're no longer in the room? That's the part that most people miss. Leadership branding isn't about one big moment. It's about the slow, steady investment that you make when nobody's watching, that shows up in full when it matters the most. The Marines that I helped later in my career, the favors that came through when the paper said no, those didn't happen because I asked well. They happened because the person on the other end of that phone call remembered who I was and how I had treated them long before I ever needed anything in return. That's the type of brand that lasts, and it's the type of brand that works. Most of us are never going to have a leadership brand that trends or goes viral or ends up on a podcast with some catchy sound bites. That's not the point, because real leadership brands, they don't need noise. They just need consistency. Your brand isn't what you choose to say, it's what you prove over and over again. It's what people expect from you when things go wrong. It's what they believe that you're going to do when nobody's telling you how to lead. It's the trust that they carry into the next team, the next mission, the next meeting, because they remember what it felt like to work with you. That's your legacy, and that's your impact. And more importantly, that's something that no title can ever guarantee. So here's the question that I'm going to leave you with. What does your leadership brand say when you're no longer in the room? And are you proud of that answer? If this message has landed with you in any way, if you think that you're ready to build a leadership brand that you can actually stand behind, I created a course that goes deeper into all of this. It's called Foundations, and it's for leaders just like you who want to lead with impact, not just with authority. You'll find the link in the description below, and there's no pressure. And if this connected with you in any way, I think that the course is going to help you take it to the next step with clarity and confidence. Thanks for being here, and more importantly, thank you for showing up as the type of leader that this world needs more of. I'll see you in the next one.